again, everyone. Welcome back to Each Too Short Talk, your podcast for all things self care and movies. And if this is your first time checking us out, we appreciate you tuning in. We are on episode 25, so we're on the silver anniversary for
Yay.
podcasts, so to speak. And I'm Jay Watson.
And I'm Cathy Castle.
And tonight we're going to talk about something that I've actually been itching to talk about for a while, ever since we talked with Tristan a while back about self care relationships. I've had this idea about red flags and how self care helps us navigate those, as I like to call them, those pesky little red flags. So we're gonna talk about how self care helps with that. But as per usual, we're gonna do a little check in. So, Cathy, what's been going on lately with you?
Oh, I might let you go first tonight. You go first.
All right, so my check-in is I'm going to vent a little bit. Imagine that. But I'm not going to vent about social media, so that's going to be a change. I'm going to vent a bit about my beloved Baltimore Orioles and just how absolutely frustrating it is to watch them. I love to watch the Orioles, man. I am a diehard for sure, but I find myself during the middle of games turning games off. I knew last Friday when I went to the movies and I came home, the first thing I did was turn the Oriole game on, and they were losing 5-2. And you're going to add on to that part of the story later on in a minute, Cathy. But they were losing 5-2, so I turned them off. I'm like, I'm done. I can't watch them tonight. I'll watch something else. So I was watching something else, and I checked on my phone, and lo and behold, they had come back and won 7-5. That was the night that Santander at the grand slam in the eighth inning to basically win the game. But it's look, they went through several years where they were absolutely horrible, and it was almost easier being a fan when they were bad in some ways because our expectations were so low. We didn't really expect them to do much, but now that they are one of the more talented teams in the major leagues, it's frustrating. And yeah, I look, I'm a channel surfer anyway, and it's hard for me to sit and watch anything straight through except for streaming stuff. So it's not uncommon for me to turn the Oriole game off when they're in the field, but I find myself turning them off more often now because
Me
I'm
too.
just like they're better than this. So
Look, at least you weren't there. I was there Friday night, and I couldn't turn them off because I was there.
yeah,
I was so mean. Look, I'm just gonna admit it right here in public. I was not. I was such a brat that night because I'm like, I don't feel like being at a losing game. I don't want to lose this game. So and then I start scrolling through my phone. I'm like, can we leave? I mean, I was just really being a brat. So to one point, believe this, Jay. Did I tell you I made friends with the two people next to me?
yep, from Texas.
That were from Texas, and I was like, because this is gonna be annoying. They're gonna be rooting for their team, and I'm gonna be like, stop. like nobody can root for anybody else in our stadium, right? I was just annoyed. I was annoyed. We were losing. They were happy. So I was like, I'm just going to talk to them. So I talked to them, and they were really nice guys. And
Wait a minute. So wait a minute. You actually went to a public place full of strangers and talked to strangers just out of the blue? I could not be more shocked that Cathy Castle just
is that
made
sarcasm? So check this out, man. I thought we were BFFs. I was giving them advice on the city, where to eat, and whatever. And then they said, "We'll be back." They never came back, Jay. And so I'm like, Marty, do you think I drove them away because I talked to them? They're like, "Here's the movie seat." I'm like,
they have movie etiquette.
They never came freaking back. So I was like, fine then. So then I spread out, and here come two a little bit intoxicated, probably 20 somethings. And Marty's like, somebody's sitting there. And I'm thinking, yeah, they just ditched us. Somebody's sitting there. They're like, oh, yeah, we talked to them. They said we can sit there. And then I'm like, they're lying. They're lying. And then I was mad at them. And she had long hair. And she flicking it in my face. And I'm like, if she flicks that hair in my face one more time, we're losing. I lost my Houston friends. I'm mad. So here's what I start doing. I get my phone out and I find this little chap that's pretty humorous. He's making chants and he's doing all kinds of things. I was like, I'm going to tape this guy. So I start taping him And that's when the Grand Slam happened. So I got the whole thing. Popcorn's flying up there. People are throwing drinks. And I was like, fireworks are going off. I was like, wait, what? So I never really saw the Grand Slam in person. I saw it through my camera.
Right.
And I caught it. I caught the whole thing. Then my mood changed.
Yeah.
But I still wasn't nice to the people that sat. They wanted me to pass their ID and pass the beer back. And I told Marty, I'm not touching it. I'm not doing it. Cheaters.
They done stole your seats from your Houston friends.
I was mad for my friends that ditched me. Anyway, that's my game.
I
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it. I mean, I kind of envy you how you can go to Bahamas and become friends with a talent scout / Uber driver or whoever.
I should put him on a podcast. Bootsy. Heck yeah.
Or you're in Boston and you're talking. Well, I talk to people in the elevator, so that one's not so far fetched for me.
There you go. I got people all over. I got a
but
guy.
But you make friends and like somehow get invited to family dinners on the spot.
Yes.
How in the hell does that happen?
No, man, it's a skill.
You're not that nice.
It's a subcategory of my stalker skills. All right.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of jealous in a way, but I'm just like, I could not do that. If it's not an elevator on vacation, well,
pressure to upkeep all these friendships. It's pressure.
Yeah. Didn't you tell me somebody from Arkansas invited you to some event in Arkansas to a wedding or something?
No,
on your cruise?
Arkansas people in the elevator in Boston. So you should relate to that. They invited us out.
Yeah, that one I'm on board with. Yeah,
I haven't done the Arkansas thing. Obviously, I'm still in with the Bermuda people, the Australians, my Miami friends, my Boston friends. Yeah.
You'll be coming on the podcast soon and saying, Jay, your check-in's going to be Jay. I'm going to a wedding in Arkansas. The people from the cruise invited.
Somebody from South Carolina, from Charleston, is coming to Brennan's wedding.
Oh,
they were on the cruise. That's the way it was.
Okay, yeah, that's what it was.
And my Bermuda friend.
So in other words,
and my Australian friend.
Brennan's following in your footsteps.
So honestly, there's a lot of cruise people coming to that wedding that I've collected over the years. Imagine that.
I mean, I've heard of people like trying to invite everybody to fill up their side of the aisle because one side of the aisle is going to be.
But this is ridiculous, right?
You've overcompensated.
Yeah. You never know. My life's an adventure.
So, yeah, the Orioles are frustrating unless you're at the ballpark and they hit a grand slam and they come back and win. Then it's
Tony.
And then so that happens. And then the next game.
Equally as frustrating.
Well, but Jackson had to hit late pinch hit and won the game that game. So I'm like, okay, maybe they've turned the corner. Nope. They lost the next game. So they're in Los Angeles for the next.
They were off. Oh, they're late games then, right?
Yeah, they're in Los Angeles for the next 3, and then they play in Colorado after that. So
the late
see what happens.
I know we got a hard schedule though.
I just hate the dreaded Yankees being in first place ahead of us. So I mean, we're probably going to make the playoffs, but it doesn't feel the same as last year. Although they didn't last very long in the playoffs last year. So.
Right. So I'm going to not apologize to the Yankee fans out there, but my Houston friends that ditched me eventually, they said that we were very nice. The Oriole fans were very nice to them, and that we went to Yankee Stadium. They were not nice to them. So there you go.
I can tell. Well, we actually, if you're watching games when the Orioles are playing away, you actually see a lot of Oriole fans in the stands at other stadiums now. Jim Palmer's talked about that a lot, and I just can't imagine Oriole fans being nasty in other stadiums. It doesn't,
Yeah. I've been to Atlanta. We've been to a few. I mean, there's some people that hit all the stadiums. That I'm jealous of. Those people.
Yeah. I actually saw a game at Wrigley Field in Chicago.
Oh, nice.
That's the only other. I'm trying to think. I think that's the only other major league baseball stadium I've ever been to, other than Memorial Stadium back in the day.
You've been to the Nats Stadium?
I have not been to Washington National Stadium. But when I was in boot camp in the Navy, when we got done boot camp, another guy and I and his parents, we went to Wrigley Field, which is like one of the old iconic fields. That was really cool.
Fenway's neat as an old.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
We went to one in Florida a long time ago. I guess would have been the Marlins, right?
Or Tampa Bay. They're the only two in Florida.
They were the Marlins, and I I couldn't believe it because it was like it didn't feel like baseball. I felt like nobody cared. There were so
Yeah,
many empty seats, and everybody was like, "Yeah, whatever." And I'm like, "This is weird. This is not
they're
what we
they're
experienced."
they're not a baseball
Yeah,
hotspot city by any means.
yeah.
They have a new like weird futuristic looking stadium. It's just yeah.
Ours was the old one, and then
Okay.
Atlanta, the Brave Stadium is really nice,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, what they're doing at Camden Yards with the surrounding neighborhoods, they're actually patterning after the Atlanta Stadium with how they've incorporated shops
Around
and
it,
yeah,
yeah.
they're
That
copying.
have you been to Atlanta? It's really
I
cool.
have not.
I mean, like
Uh,
it's a whole thing, you know. You're shopping and eating all around it. It's cool.
It's an
I mean,
experience. Yeah,
it's an experience. I mean, you feel like Camden Yards is just special to us.
yeah. It's one of
Very,
a kind for sure.
yeah.
All right, so our topic tonight is going to be talking about how self care, not only how self care helps with navigating red flags in relationships. But you brought a good point up earlier when we were talking, getting preparing for this episode, Cathy. You were talking about how um, we should recognize the red flags within ourselves if we're lacking in wellness within self care. We should recognize those red flags as well. So we'll get into that a little bit too, and it kind of the red flags with self care kind of piggybacks off of what we talked about with relationships before, and it kind of also goes in line with that progression of self that I talk about,
Hmm.
progression of self, and how doing self care builds up that strong sense of self, and how that helps us not only to see red flags, but to not ignore them. Because I know I've certainly been guilty many times of either not seeing them or seeing them and ignoring them because my insecurities would not allow me to feel like that relationship wasn't suited. I was so stuck on trying to fill a void in my life um, that I ignored red flags, and I think so many people do. And it goes back to that not having a strong enough sense of self. And I was thinking about this earlier and how the difference between strong self esteem and a strong sense of self. I think strong self esteem is a part of a strong sense of self because I also think another important aspect of a strong sense of self is discovering who you are. And when you know who you are, you're you have a little bit more focused idea of what a healthy mate would be because you're aware of what what you like, your values, and things like that. That's kind of the other part of strong sense of self. But we kind of, like I say, a strong sense of self esteem is part of that. I know for me, I had a long line of failed relationships, and it's ironic that it was all those failed relationships that got me at age 40 to look in the mirror and say, wait a minute, what am I doing wrong? Why am I choosing these things that are unhealthy? What's my part in this? So as I've kind of unraveled some of those mysteries within my own life, I can now point to not having had a strong enough sense of self to A, recognize red flags, or B, not ignoring the red flags because I was just too insecure to begin with.
I got an article for that.
Of course.
But I thought it was kind of interesting to define red flags, or I like to make comparisons. Like what do we mean by red flags? And this particular article that comes from a site called Very Well Mind talks about how we use red flags for a lot of things. The obvious ones like a stop sign or a stop sign, a red
Yep.
light,
It's a signal. Yeah.
signal like whoa, just or even in a game where a red flag may be called on something. And it even talked about yellow flags, maybe
Mm.
the caution flags.
Yeah.
You may
Yep.
not be coming right to a halt, but there might be some pre-warning, some
Yep.
yellow warnings. So
To
anyway,
pay more attention. Yep.
I thought I can tell you. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been out on the scene, But I don't think that was
Well,
any.
me too at this point.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I don't think that's anything that when I was younger, I didn't think about anything like that. Oh, that's a red flag, or I should think
Yeah,
about that. I don't think my brain was capable. I imagine a lot of people aren't capable now either.
yeah.
But um, there's certainly and there's certainly a lot of things that this article says, which we can talk about. We can come back to
Hmm.
the article about what are stuff to predictors of maybe you're down for some rocky roads. But you and I have talked about it before. It's like, and I have four young adults, I guess at this point you can call it. But it's a different. I feel like there's so much pressure on people to be in relationships, and I don't know. I worry with the kids today or the younger people today that everything's 24/7. Every phones, everybody is connected 24/7, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's like if they're connected 24/7, I don't even know that they're able to see the flags because you're always on, you're always
Yeah,
dating, and I feel so strongly that dating and being in a serious relationship are we all use different terms, I guess.
yeah.
Or dating and marriage are very different. Maybe that's what I'm
Hmm.
trying to say. But what's shiny and happy and so full of love can turn on a dime. I guess that's why we see divorce rates so high and
Yeah.
change. And anyway, I'll get off the soapbox.
Well, I think Kathy, and look, I know I was a little bit different in how in the unhealthy ways that I was going about
Mm,
relationships, but I think, and I've touched on this before, and I use these statistics a lot, where, like you just said, 55% of marriages end, 80-ish% of just relationships in general end.
hmm.
And
That's a high
I've
number.
kind of, yeah, I've kind of, in my mind, I think about it like this. They end to me because one or both parties enter into that relationship for the wrong reasons. Um, whether it's fear of being alone, which is a big one, whether it's social pressures like you just talked about. Everybody in their social circle is already married or they're all coupled
Like
up.
kids.
Yep. Um, their siblings are,
Yeah.
there's that, it's either a real or perceived
Hmm.
um, peer pressure or social pressure.
Or that it's a sign of success if you like.
Yes.
I
Yeah, like you mentioned just a minute ago, how there is this stigma about
Yeah.
single people, especially if you're of a certain age and you're single.
Hmm.
And I get people fairly frequently that will ask me, "Hey, are you dating anybody, or are you seeing like it's like that's some kind of a status
Indicator.
marker?"
It's an
Yeah,
indicator, right?
it's an automatic indicator of happiness,
Right.
as if none of us can be happy single.
Right.
And I just that I mean, look, when I was up until I was 40, I, I was the one who felt like I couldn't be happy without a
Yeah.
relationship. Um, but now it just seems like so commonsensical to me that because here's what, like, I feel like there's a balance. We should, any of us should take just as much happiness and fulfillment in the times that we're alone as we do in the times when we're with our partner, whether we're with someone or not. Because if you're dependent
I
on
agree.
their presence, I think
Hmm.
human beings are social creatures by nature. We want that
Right.
connection, but I think that there's connection and then there's dependence. And when
Like
it starts to swing
codependent.
the pendulum to the dependence, and we all know people, and I know several who will get out of one relationship and hop right into another one.
Right into one.
They could be with someone for many years, and very soon after that one ends, and it's like, and to me, not only are there red flags that self care helps us to see if we've got that strong sense of self, but there are also red flags within ourselves. In other words, if we're repeating the same patterns and it's unhealthy, there's a track record of it not working, like I did with myself, I was a walking red flag to myself. that I was not seeing. I was not seeing the unhealthy Jay, and I wasn't seeing that because I was so insecure. My progression of self says, you do the self care consistently, you get a stronger sense of self, you start to make healthier choices. You're no longer making choices based on fear, insecurity, and desperation.
Well, don't you
You,
think it's codependency at some level? I mean,
yes,
it's not healthy to be codependent on someone. You can't.
yes,
Your identity. I mean, I've been married a long time. I'm trying to think how many years. Okay, I'm just gonna say it's been since '92.
30 plus.
I'm such a guy. I'm such the guy in a relationship. Anyway, wow, what is it? 30.
32.
I'm not a math person. Anyway, but I feel like it's important for me to have a strong sense of self, and that I can't be reliant 100% on, like, that we have to do everything together, or we have to like everything the same, because we're definitely different. And that's good. But sometimes when I was younger, I didn't know. I had let a little bit of jealousy creep in, or I thought we had to do everything together, but I don't wore both of us out. So I'm glad that I was able to mature from my perspective, and not become a codependent person, because those are tough relationships on both parties.
Yeah, because it is hard. It's unfair to the other person because
Mhm.
you're now giving them the power. You're giving them the responsibility of your happiness, and that's
Yeah.
think about this. And I heard this on another podcast, and it makes so much sense. Why would you depend on a thing that you have no control over? In other words, here's this other person, this the other member of your relationship
Yeah.
that we have no control over what they do, how they feel. We have an idea of what we would like for them to be, this picture of how we want them to treat us, but
Yeah.
we have no control over them. But yet we're depending on this thing we don't control for us
Yeah.
to be happy, and it's not fair to them. It's not their responsibility, and it's a lot of pressure because
Yeah.
that codependency, it shows, it comes across,
Yeah.
and if both parties are like that, oh wow, then you've got a ticking time bomb. It's just you can't. I think people get it backwards, and I did this myself.
Hmm.
You think, okay, the relationship is going to make me happy, instead
Yeah.
of, okay, I'm happy, now let me add this healthy thing to an already happy situation.
Yeah, but don't we do that with a lot of things? I mean,
Yes,
if you're going to go get a new car, my goodness, you are so happy for how long? 30
yes,
days, and then you're like, it's just a car. Like,
or a
but
job, picking a job or a career. Yeah,
a new outfit.
yeah.
I was happy when I got this new Starbucks apple drink until it's almost done.
But
I mean, we're just, yeah,
we do those things because we're insecure, because there's a hole that we're filling. We're expecting a square peg to fill a round hole. Using an external source to fill an internal need, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't work.
but
It's unhealthy. It's toxic. There's
it's
nothing good about it.
complicated. It's complicated. Nobody teaches us how to have good relationships,
It-
and sometimes we have role models that were not the best, by
right,
their not either by their own fault or not by their own fault. It's
right.
generational, and our poor brains are not. The prefrontal cortex is not. It's not fully
Not
paved
developed yet.
front
Yep.
until what, at least 26, maybe pushing
Yeah.
28 these days, and we're making lots of impulsive decisions young, and then stuff gets complicated.
So that kind of brings us to that Swiss Army knife tool. That's kind of why we wanted to talk about this today. Is
Well,
that self care? It's such a
should I name some of the
yes.
some of
Yep.
the red flags, and then we could talk about, I don't know,
Yep.
we can't solve them
Yep.
all,
We
but we
can
could talk
expound
about.
on them. Yep.
I'm just gonna spit them out, and then we don't have to talk about all these, but obviously, and we know lots of people have been in this situation. This is a tough one when there's alcoholism and drug addiction in a relationship. We don't have to go into it. We'll just park it there, but
Yeah.
that is very hard. That is
Yeah.
very hard for a lot of reasons. Certainly if there's violence, domestic violence in a
Yeah.
relationship, that's very hard, and that is very hard to get out of for a lot of people. Um,
And here's what's interesting about that, Kathy. And there's kind of two ways that can manifest itself, and they're different. There is the you entered into a relationship with someone you knew had a substance problem,
Mm-hmm.
and then you entered into a relationship with someone who at first did not, and it came about later on. They're still both red flags, but they're different in
Mm-hmm.
how
Yeah.
that person would approach it, because it's kind of, if you knew it was there and you chose them anyway, that's one thing. But if you chose a mate, everything seemed to be fine, and then for whatever reason this manifested itself in that person later on, you have a little bit of a foundation to fall back on and say, I know that person when. And again, they're both red flags, but they just are presented differently. I just thought I would kind of throw that out there.
Those are hard things, and there's probably a lot of people that says, if you don't stop, I'm gonna leave, and we
Yeah,
have a whole session on every one of them.
yeah,
Missed. I can't talk again. Here we go. Mismatched relationship goals.
yes,
Right.
yep.
All day long. Some persistent jealousy and distrust. I've seen a lot of that.
That's that's part of the codependent thing. The yep,
History of infidelity. If you know you're rolling into somebody that believes in dating while married, that can be a little problem.
yep.
Yeah, I loved this one. Someone who has lots of stories about crazy exes. Maybe that should be
Yeah, because that tells you about their judgment.
this one made me laugh. If you I shouldn't be laughing. This is not funny. We're talking about serious stuff. I'm sorry to the listeners. When someone gives you all their time, maybe that should be a red flag.
Love bombing. Yeah, it's called love bombing. Yeah,
Oh, love bombing was in here too, man.
yeah.
I would not be good with a love bomber. Do not love me that much because I'm gonna be like, yeah,
Now I
stop.
got to say, when I was younger,
Love me all.
I was guilty of that, because
You love
I felt like, and now I can look back and say, because I was not shown that, I felt like I had to overcompensate and be very forward and very out there with my affection and all that. I was, especially in my 20s, I was very much that person. And don't get me wrong, I'm pretty giving by nature even now, but yeah, I was I was the love bomber back in the day for sure. Not to be mistaken with the Unabomber, but the love bomber.
And then, our favorite gaslighting. I mean, gaslighting is just,
Oh,
you know, where
which
a
goes
person
hand in hand with
does
narcissism.
things
Oh,
to make,
yeah,
it makes you question yourself. I get so mad at the gaslighting thing.
turns things around on you when it. Yeah,
Manipulators. Oh my gosh.
yeah, controllers. Yeah, that's
Anyway,
all in that narcissistic
so
personality. Yeah,
there's just some of those, and I guess what we want to talk about too is just how to trust your gut here, and maybe some things on
well,
how to trust your gut.
well, here's the thing, Kathy, and I think sure, relationships are such a big part of all our lives, whether it's romantic relationships, family relationships, work relationships, whatever they are, and there can be red flags in all of those.
Right.
But I think, we beat this drum all the time. The better we are at taking care of ourselves, the better relationship we have with ourselves, the more likely it is that we're going to make healthier choices. So it sounds kind of counterintuitive to say, okay, in order for our relationship with this other person to work out well, we have to concentrate on our individual self. It kind of sounds wonky, but it's actually vital. Um, because again, if we're repeating that same cycle over and over and over again, we are our own red flag. We're not
Yeah.
healthy enough to be with anyone. It doesn't mean the other person's a bad person. It doesn't mean that we're bad people. We all have to work on ourselves to some degree.
We
All
got
of
to
us.
do self-assessments, but people are
Yes.
not good at that. I mean, people
I
are
think
good at pointing a finger,
they're terrified to do that.
but they don't, and usually someone's acting a certain way because there's a lot of junk underneath of why they're
Yeah.
acting these ways, and we also know we can't fix everybody. They got to want to fix themselves, but
Yeah.
it's a laundry list. I mean, if there's red flag, and I guess it depends on how deep you're in a relationship or not. Are you married? Are
Yeah.
you kids? What's going on? But what can you fix? And sometimes you need a professional to help you. But
Yeah.
is your communication off? Is somebody communication's not a fair game, a fair fight, is it? There's a lot of people that do not communicate fairly,
Yeah. Or
and
at all.
or at all, right? People make assumptions, or you know, people are very one sided.
And that part, Kathy, when people don't communicate, they're that's a low self esteem thing. They're not comfortable enough to say, "I'm going to put this out there, and if it has that person think negatively of me, I'm okay with that. If they disagree with me, I'm okay with that." People do not want they just want to get along. They just want to not rock the boat and not make any waves because in their mind they have convinced themselves that this relationship is their happiness. They identify with the relationship instead of being their own identity and bringing that to the relationship. And if anything rocks what they have determined is their identity, they're terrified of that. And it just and it's I don't know, it sounds so simple now, and I'm like, man, I just wish. And look, I was 40 years old when I decided, Jay, you need to really look in the mirror, do
Yeah.
some self reflection, and yes, all these people that you have had relationships previously may not have been the right person, but I chose them, and I'm like, what's my part in this? No matter what, if they were good, bad, it didn't matter who they were or what they did. I couldn't control what they did or who they were, but I had complete control over how I could learn from that and try to do better each time and be better within myself to try to make these healthier choices along the way. I had complete control over that. So it yeah,
Well, I've always admired you, Jay, because, between you and I and our conversations that we have with one another, I've always admired how open you've been about your history of relationships, and how positive, like, I've never seen anybody put such a positive spin on ex relationships, and you're grateful. I mean, you'll say,
right,
so and so, I'm really grateful for that relationship. It wasn't for me. We got into it for the wrong reasons. But what I learned from that is blah. There's not many
yeah,
people I don't think are able to do that. A lot of us can be very angry, like, that person, look at them now. We try to cut them down or say they're horrible, but
yeah.
you've done a great job of giving credit to the ones that have helped you get to who you are today, and I respect.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And I think it's important, Kathy, that
We're
to
all no peach. We're all not peaches all the time. I'm
yeah. And
not.
look, I've had situations where I've been cheated on, and it was terrible. And those situations sucked. They suck for anybody. But I think it's important to um, you have to sit in your pain. You have to be sit in it long enough to become familiar enough with it to understand where it comes from. And that's why self reflection, especially for those of us who've been through childhood trauma, because
Hmm.
I carried all that was the root cause of my bad choices in relationships. I was trying to fill the void of not having a proper family unit growing up. So I was trying to create my own. But
Sure, that makes
you
sense.
you have to, and it's the last thing people want to do. People want to sweep their pain and anger underneath the carpet, and not deal with it, and hope it goes away on its own. So many people are guilty of that, and it's so painful. They say, "I want to get past it," or I want to get over it. But it's so important to like really sit with it and become familiar with it because just like with any other thing you're trying to solve in your life, if you don't know why, you have no chance of resolving it. So we have to know why my childhood trauma
Yeah.
helped helped cause me to make these unhealthy choices. I have to
Yes.
understand, you know, okay, now I know not to put my hand on the hot stove. If you're 2 years old and your parents say don't put your hand on the hot stove, but once you do, you know that I don't do that anymore. You learn what not to do.
Do you think
You,
people really do that? I think we overuse put your hand on the hot stove.
it's just such
I
an
got to
easy
put a little
analogy.
humor in there. Okay, I have to put.
Yeah,
Look, that's why I'm really excited to get Courtney more back on our podcast. And we've had Courtney come in before and talk about grief and movement, but Courtney just recently got certified in another grief. Oh gosh, I can't remember exactly what it is. It's anyway, she was trying to explain it to me, and I need to learn a bit more myself, but I was so interested, and I hope she can come on and talk about it, because she was talking about a loss of her mom, actually. Her mom had passed of cancer, and how that affected her so much. And in her grief work, and I think she wants to actually do some workshops with people with this. It was like, to me, it was like intense journaling. Like, pick a relationship that you struggled with, and just say it was her mom or whatever. And then you go back in time to your earliest memories of what, took place, what was traumatic to you, what you think went wrong, and you break those situations down. I mean, this is heavy work, but there might be a lot of folks out there that are having a bad relationship, and maybe they're the red flag. They've become the red flag, but
Yeah.
or maybe somebody else is a red flag. But it's important to examine what happened to me, and why am I reacting like that? What at what stage in my childhood? And just think, when you and I were having the live group, or the group where we met
Uh-huh.
together. I guess it
Yep.
was virtual too, but there were so many people that talked about their childhood. I could not believe how many people.
Yeah.
We're talking about a self-care support group, and people went back to childhood. So there's
Yep.
unresolved work that, if we could, I think let me say this. I know it's therapy as well in some cases, but I also think it's a form of self-care to really go back and figure out where you got broken, or where you veered off the road, and
Yes.
what your responses have been since then.
Yeah.
And I don't think therapy's great. I'm not knocking that. Obviously,
Hmm.
I'm a
Yeah.
professional myself, but there's things you can do, and that's why we do the podcast. There's self-care things you can do,
Not just can do, should do.
should do. Yeah.
Um, I just think, I'll close with this on my end. I just think, it's no matter what society's telling you, it's not, you're not lesser, you're not wrong, you're not bad for being single. I think, and
Agreed.
I
Some
was,
days you got more money. You got to have more money and less gray hair.
yep. I won't name the celebrity, but this is a fairly well known celebrity, and they posted on their Instagram the other day that they had not been in any kind of relationship of any sort for over 3 years.
Mm.
And I had to like give them a big thumbs up in a comment section, because I'm like, and they said, I've not been in a relationship for over 3 years and I've never been happier. And it echoed, you know, my current status. And look, I want to make it clear, I am not anti
Right.
relationship at
Yeah.
all. I am pro healthy relationship. There's a big
Mhm.
difference.
Exactly.
Um, and people have to realize it is necessary to have alone time, even if you've been
Yeah.
married for 25 years and
Yeah.
your life is wrapped up in your partner. It's necessary.
I
You
agree.
and we've talked about this many times, Kathy, on the podcast. The relationship we have with ourselves affects all the others. Not only does it affect all the other relationships, it affects so many choices of all kinds that we make in our lives.
Yeah.
The better the better version of us we have is what we have that to give to those other relationships in our lives. So take the time to have you time.
To know
Do
yourself.
that self care. You'll be amazed. You'll start discovering and try new things. This is all part of it. That's what I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
The strong sense of self is not just about having high self esteem. It's also about discovering who you really are. What your
Yeah.
look
What your
5 years.
values are, right? What your
Yes,
values are.
Kathy. 5 years ago, doing this would
Yeah.
have been as far away from what I thought was my path was that I could have possibly seen. Yet here I
I
am,
got a fan. I'm trying not to look like Beyonce here.
and I've never been happier. I've never had more fun. I've never felt more
Let me.
fulfilled, and I've never had more sense of purpose. And I would have never thought this, but I took a chance and I went in a direction that didn't fit what I thought was my identity, and here I am happier than ever. So
Let
try
me.
that new thing. Discover who you are.
Yeah.
That self care helps you discover who you are.
Let me ask you this: if somebody was listening, And again, I've been married for 100 years and you have not. So we come from very different backgrounds, which is fine. You're not saying people
I
should.
have not been married for 100 years. Since
You're
100 years.
you're not saying people. You're not against marriage, and I'm not
Not
against.
at all.
We're not knocking anything, and neither one of us are saying go get a divorce or go get a husband. We're not saying any of
Nope.
that.
Nope.
But what I
We're
my
saying find yourself first.
yeah, and what I would say, am asking you, I guess, is if somebody was listening and maybe they are single or maybe they're down on themselves because they haven't found somebody and they feel like, well, I have to have somebody because I'm this age, or I have to have somebody because I need that companionship. What would you say to those two people? So one is, I'm, father time is ticking. I have to be married by 30 or whatever. Or the other person is, I have to have a companion because I'll be so lonely.
Um, well, the my solution for both of them is the same thing. Here's the thing: how you've been going about it up till now is not working. You've determined that you're in a rut. You've labeled that a rut, or I'm
That's a
stuck,
good
or I'm
point.
lesser. So whatever you've been doing prior, like with me, and I'm not throwing shade at anybody because I had a, a, a list as long as my arm of failed relationships. So I hear you, I get it. But here's the thing: ask yourself this question: what happens if I'm single? There's nothing legitimate, and I stress the word legitimate. There's nothing legitimate that says that being single, whether it's for a month or a year or 5 years,
Mhm.
is wrong. That is don't part of that self care to grow that self esteem is so that when society, and they will, comes at you and gives that pressure and says you're not worthy because you're single, if you've been working on yourself, you don't care what they think.
Well, it's a story we tell ourselves, right? It's a story. Doesn't mean
And
it's fact. It's a story.
and once again, social media plays into this because how many times do we see, whether it's married couples or just people in relationships, bombard their pages with the stuff they're doing as a couple? Look what our vacation was. Look at us. And
Yeah.
those of us of a different age have learned to sort through that and say,
Look,
I know better. I know better. They're
just
not this happy.
just the other night, I showed Marty a post, a social media post, and I said, "See this? Don't ever do that." I was like,
Yeah.
"There's too many emojis on there. There is too much love bombing. Don't do that to me." FYI.
So people who are single see that and they say, "Ooh, they look so happy. I want some of that." And
Right.
the fact is, more often than not, those people that are posting constantly like that are projecting an image they want you to see. Not, and I'm not saying that there aren't that
Yeah.
some of them are not legitimately happy. They are, but
We're knocking you happy anniversary, happy birthday, people.
no, I just refer back to the days of our 20s when social media didn't even exist.
No, wait, it
And
was shoot, I have one. It's the notebook paper that's folded up, and
yeah,
then it all comes open. Do you love
we
me?
did
Yes or no? Circle
we
one.
didn't we didn't feel a need to have to project a an image of our relationship, real or not real, to anybody. It's
Well,
just
unless you
that
wrote it on that paper bag book cover you made.
the only
Happy
projection of
birthday,
that was like
Springfield.
you walk down the halls holding hands in a high school. That was our form of social media that projected our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, don't believe everything in a relationship sense on social media. Most of it, not all, most of it is a mirage. It's intended to get you to feel like they have this thing that they don't really have.
Because people want to belong, and
And
I will.
again, think about this: if 55% of marriages fail, think about how many people that don't really belong together that are still married. That number should really
That
be
is true.
way higher.
You're
Um,
That's absolute. Well, it's probably more than that 80%. Wouldn't you say? If your statistic that you found was 80% of dating doesn't. work
Yeah,
out
of
for
just
kids.
generally, yes.
That I bet you it's the same with marriage. If 50% fail, there's still another percent that stay in
we
because
all we all know somebody, and
yeah,
probably know several somebodies that we know they're not happy, whether they're married or just
right,
together. We
right.
know they're not happy. They've told us directly, "I'm not happy," but yet here they are throwing this stuff out on social media. Don't be afraid to be alone. I'm telling you, if you're working on yourself consistently, you'll discover some amazing things about yourself, and you'll be like, "Oh, this outside noise just doesn't matter."
I
It
hope we
doesn't.
haven't affected the divorce rate now with this podcast.
And look, I want to stress this one more time. I am not anti. I'm not bashing relationships at all. Yes, there are people that have good, healthy relationships that post that on social media. That's fantastic. That's what we all strive to have. That's
Yeah,
great. But I'm just pro
healthy.
working on ourselves enough to give ourselves a better chance at healthier relationships. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can I say one thing about self care?
Yep. You can say two things about self care.
You know what? I was thinking a lot about this. So, you're a very consistent guy, which is fabulous. I
Which
wish,
is code for OCD.
and that's probably Marty is the same, right? Well, I told him today, I was like, you know what? I beat myself up a lot about self care. Like, there is consistent things I do for self care that are pretty, my tea, get my nails done, or I get a
Mhm.
massage, whatever. But then there's other things that come and go. Like sometimes I'm on a journaling kick, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm walking, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm podcast, other people's podcasts, sometimes I'm not. I go in and out. Sometimes I'm stretching. This morning I went to start stretching again, and I was like, "Ow, my back hurts." It's like, "Daggone it!" So
This
Marty's like,
damn self care.
no. And I was like, Marty, I said, sometimes I beat myself up like I'm a self care failure and I'm sitting here talking about it so much. I was like, because I don't always stay to the same thing. I hop around. And he's like, well, that would match your personality. You probably get bored. So you hop around. But I was just thinking when we're talking about self care all the time that if there is somebody out there like me that just bouncing all around, like if don't think you're a failure if you stop like something's working for you and then you stop because
Right.
I know I've said this before. I get into a storm and then I stop some things that are good for me and then I have to go pick something back up. But I might not pick the same thing up. I might pick a different good habit or
And that's okay. It's not, look, I'm an extreme
yeah.
example because I'm so very regimented and set in my ways.
It helps
That's
you
just
that
what
way.
helps me. And look, I have made it a goal to kind of try new things just new things that I might enjoy. Because there's a lot of things that I think I probably would enjoy that I need to venture out and do, and I will. But there's nothing wrong with, there's not just one way to go about self care. As long as you're doing
Yeah.
something, you don't have to be Cathy doing, activity X, Y, and Z each day, every day, all the time. You can, do that for a little while, then change it. You can replace it, interchange them. As long as you're doing something, they
Yeah.
don't all have to be big things. They don't have to be small things. I actually recommend trying several different things. That's part of that discovery of who
Yeah.
we are. And that, again, if we know who we are, we are better equipped to pick the right person when it comes to that time.
Which is why we need the toolbox with the Swiss Army knife and the different
Yes.
choices to use at different times for self
Yeah.
care.
And if you haven't figured out kind of the theme to these 25 episodes, it's that self care is so widely encompassing in how it helps us overall in so many aspects of our life. The better we are, the better our life is in every aspect. It sounds on paper, and as Kathy and I are talking about it, it sounds elementary.
Mm-hmm.
In practice, it's difficult,
It
but
is.
it's necessary. It's vital for all of us. So, and it helps us, if we're doing it consistently enough, we build up that strong sense of self. So now we're those red flags that are going to come around. It happens for all of us. We're able to recognize them, and we're far less likely to ignore them because we know, okay, I'm fine if I'm single. I don't need this. This is not working for me. This is not healthy. I need to separate myself and move on. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not going to fade away to nothing if we're not in a relationship. It's not, this whole stigma of
Yeah.
single people or lesser, society out there, social media people out there. Enough of that. It's stop asking your friends, why aren't you dating someone? You know, you need to have a baby.
Oh
Your
gosh,
biological clock. Stop that garbage. Stop it. Just stop it. That is anti self care.
yes.
That's the kryptonite to self care. Stop that
Stop it.
garbage.
Stop the garbage. Stop the garbage.
Stop. Yeah. Stop the madness out there.
That's funny.
Be single if you want to be single. Figure out who you are. Have fun. Do all the things. And if
Be
somebody
smart.
happens to
You're
come
gonna have
along,
fun. Be smart.
yeah, you know, but be you. Find out who you are. Love that person unconditionally, and do that to the best of your ability. And I'm telling you, more good than bad will happen.
And love might walk right in the door.
You never know.
What's the
But the
band that
thing
said
is,
it was Love
love comes walking in,
Yeah.
and you'll be so much better prepared, and you'll have such a higher chance of success if you've been working on yourself than you would have if you had not. So, self care is the antidote to red flags, or is the assistant in determining red flags. So,
Because if you take better care of yourself, so in summary, if you take better care of yourself, then maybe you can communicate better. You can be more empathetic to other people. Um,
you're more secure about having a different opinion than a
yeah, you're not
potential mate.
defensive. Maybe as defensive
Yep,
when
yep,
something's said. Maybe you're able to listen better.
yep,
Maybe you're not as wound up.
yep. It's a stronger
Um,
sense of self. It's just simple as that. It's just
yeah.
you're just secure in who you are. Period.
And then it affects everything else. If you're not rung up, you're maybe sleeping better. You're maybe eating better. Everything comes into better balance.
Yep. Your body is going to love you for taking care of your overall wellness. Yes, because we carry everything, all our stresses, all our anxieties in our body, all of it.
I think if you're a hot mess kind of person, I don't care if you're male or female, figure out what works for you. Like you said, I mean, maybe some people need to go out and walk. Some people need yoga. Some people need whatever. I don't know what everybody needs, but you have to find it. You have to figure that out yourself. What settles you? What calms you?
Yep. So we will transition from that into what we've been watching lately. And actually, I'm excited tonight because the new season premiere of Only Murders in the Building.
Oh yeah, I remember
As,
you saying that.
as soon as I get off here, I'm going to turn it on because it's on. I don't know if it's just the first episode. Normally they do two or three right off the bat. Um, so I am very excited about that. And I'm trying to remember what I watched last Friday night. What in the world did I watch last Friday
It
night?
must not have been that exciting.
It was all right. What have you been watching anything new lately?
Nothing. Although I did. This has been a bad week for me. I've had a 21st birthday of a kid. I went to an Oreo game. Um, I heard that Ted Lasso is gonna
Yeah,
be
it's getting
yeah
closer and closer to episode 4.
season 4.
I'm sorry. Yep, season 4.
So
I mean,
that makes us very happy.
yeah, because the British actors have kind of been they have the option on those.
Look
They
at
just
you with
have
a scoop. Look at you with a scoop.
they have to get the option on the American actors. I'm trying to go back and see what in the world did I watch?
You need to go look up the movies. What's at the movie?
Yeah, I'm trying to look. I'm going to look up
I'm all
the.
late. Like I've now discovered that I want to see Twisters.
Oh, I know what it was. It was Blink Twice.
Oh yeah. You did say that.
It's with Channing Tatum and Zoe Kravitz makes her directorial debut. Um, it was decent. It's a psychological thriller, murder mystery kind of thing. It's a totally different type of character than what we're used to seeing Channing Tatum play. Channing Tatum's typically the good guy,
Magic Mike.
the male lead, yeah, the handsome, sexy guy. Um, he's kind of sort of that, but he is not all. He's the bad guy basically, without giving too much away. Um, it started off kind of slow, but it did get better. I would consider it a nice average movie. It's probably a 5 or a 5.5 out of 10.
A nice
Um,
average.
just a nice solid movie. I didn't, it was all right. I did not regret seeing it. I didn't walk out of the theater or anything like that, but it
Is
also
there
did not.
is there anything coming up for the holiday weekend?
I'm going to see the new Alien movie this Friday.
Mm.
It's called Alien Romulus. I was trying to determine between that and another one that I had not. It's called Afraid, but I haven't even seen the previews for that. So I
Hmm.
decided at least I know what Alien is about. So I decided to go that route. And you say you're going to watch Twisters?
I want to see Twisters. Everybody in my house has seen that, and I
It's good.
look.
I liked it better than the first one, and I like the first one.
Somebody said they thought Tristan looks like one of the actors named Boone.
Yeah, must be one of the guys that's in um, Glenn Powell's group of people in the movie.
So I might that's one I want to see.
It's good. I liked it because it's a little bit more sciencey than the first one. It kind of really gets into the exact science of how a tornado forms, and yeah, it was good.
I mean, we're gonna be busy in the fall. Got to see Wicked. I'm ready for that.
Oh yes, and Beetlejuice. I think
Oh yes,
that's
yes. Don't say it
I,
again.
I think that's either next week or the following week.
What? It's that? It's like it is. It's like coming.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's within the next couple weeks, so I'm really looking forward to that one too.
Nice. Nice.
All the old cast plus the add Jenna
Oh
Ortega,
yeah, I saw that.
who plays Winona Ryder's daughter in this movie. I did not realize. I just was watching an interview with Winona Ryder about this movie.
Mm.
It's been 36 years since the
Really?
original. Yep. So it was 1988 was when the original came out.
We just like sequels, don't we?
And this is
Society.
like the whole Beetlejuice is it crosses generations. It's
Mhm.
it kind of and there is a Deo the
Oh, it
Deo
is.
song that's in it again.
Yes,
They get
yes, yes.
it's actually in the trailer, so I'm not giving anything
Yeah,
away.
yeah, yeah.
Catherine O'Hara talks about that. She said when that she first got the script, that was the first thing she looked for to see if there was a Deo scene in the
Yeah.
script, and she was like, "Oh yeah," and she was excited about that.
I think that movie will do very well. I really do.
Oh yeah.
Everybody will be dressed like it for Halloween.
And Michael Keaton said they interviewed him, and he said that he went back and watched the original for the first time in forever as preparation, and he was like, "He's and again." I looked at they do these press tours to promote the movie, but he just seemed like he was genuine. He was like, "I really enjoy it. I really love doing that movie because that character is so out there and so
Yeah.
like as an actor, that's probably like a fun, if you play that like weird, crazy, ghost demon, whatever he is, kind of thing. That must be just so much fun as an actor to play something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That gets us something to look forward to.
Yeah,
It's
so I'm
just-
gonna is out when I
I'm
pop off
due a
here.
movie.
I'm
I'm
gonna
due a
pop on and watch Only Murders in the Building on Hulu, and I'm kind of hoping there's multiple episodes because I watch them both. Eva Longoria, Zach Galifianakis, and Eugene Levy are three of this year's
yeah.
added added cast. Their cast is crazy good.
Oh, so they
It's
keep adding on. I mean, they'll all be a
yes,
part of it. Oh, because
yep,
I was thinking, oh, new season, new actors, but they add on. I didn't realize that.
yep.
I didn't
Meryl
realize.
Streep. Meryl Streep came on. She was on. She was
Oh
like a
wow.
lead character all last year. She
Yeah.
played Martin Short's love interest, um, and
Huh.
then there's actually been two Academy Award winners, Meryl Streep, and there's a woman who plays a police officer on the show who was in that movie, The Holdovers. She just won an Academy Award for that just recently, and she's on the show. I mean, the cast is crazy good. Yeah, and I was surprised that I liked it as much as because when I heard murder
Mm-hmm.
mystery / comedy, I'm like,
Yeah.
eh. And I'm not the biggest Martin Short fan. I do like Steve Martin, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, but I'm a big Selena Gomez fan, as you know. It just works. It's funny, but yet there's you're this mystery is always there, so you're trying to solve the
Well,
mystery the whole season.
Martin Short and Steve Martin have worked together before.
Many times,
Father
many times.
Bride.
the Three Amigos.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
They've done stuff on Saturday Night Live together.
yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah.
do that new Wells Fargo credit card commercial together. That's funny. This is Hulu's highest rated regular series
Oh wow, okay,
on their network. So yeah, it's
nice.
they're going to do really well. So yeah, I'm going to hop off here and go check that out while I'm editing
Get on. I
this
gotta watch.
episode.
I gotta catch up. I gotta watch something this week so I can have something to say. I watched.
Yeah, and don't forget, guys, stay tuned for the announcement of dates and times for our first live episode to be filmed down at the Oxford Community Center. Maybe you guys can hop down there and catch us live in person and comment or ask questions live, and you'll be able to also check that out on Facebook Live in real time as it's happening. So, you guys, thanks for joining us. Take care, and we'll see you next time.